Hey, everybody, welcome to another Thursday morning, 9 o'clock community focus. Hey, if you haven't been to Georgia in a while, if you're watching us out there on any of the platforms that we're live streaming on, you got to come to Georgia. We are open for business, and of course, we're being responsible. We're socially distancing. We're wearing our masks, sometimes two, sometimes three. But if you're like my friend Julian, who works for Bank of America in Times Square, where did I find him last week? At the Beltline, hanging out, living for a month so he could actually get food to eat. So we are focusing on a great Georgia community day today, Loganville, Georgia. It's on Highway 78 as you kind of leave Snellville and you head toward the classic city of Athens. You go through the wonderful little town of Loganville, and we've got some folks from there today, and I'm going to start with Reverend Michael Guernsey. Michael, you are the pastor at the Anglican Church there, and tell us a little bit about how you wound up in Georgia at the church.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you. It's not very fancy to say, but there was a job and I applied and got it, being called here. And so it's wonderful to be here. I've been here for about 3 years here at Holy Cross Cathedral. So I'm not from Georgia, but came here from Virginia, where I'm originally from, but then by way of South Carolina, where I was a pastor before coming here. So as I said, been here about 3 years, and it's just wonderful to be in this community.
Yeah, I knew your previous pastor and members of your church. I've spoken at your Sunday morning classes. I've had the privilege of having your pastor pray for me there in 2010 when I was just starting in my job. And it's such an important thing, I think, for us to continue to encourage not only our churches, but all of our nonprofit organizations. One of my masters is in nonprofit organizations, and I'm just a huge fan of charity and personal responsibility and people giving to their church, giving to these organizations. Tell me about some of the things that your church has been involved with in the last year.
Yeah, well, speaking of giving, our church has been in a situation like everybody else where we've been limited in what we can do in person, but that hasn't stopped us from gathering for worship, both in person in smaller ways. But also we've been able to collect. Our church is very generous and faithful in giving. And so we have a commitment as a church to give away a considerable amount of what we're entrusted with each year. And so we've been able to do some really fun things in ways we've been able to support others who are able to serve. And so just sharing a little bit about some of those things, we've been able to do things locally, like give more to local organizations, local food banks. One fun thing we did was we have people collecting food from a local food bank, and we provided art supplies for kids who were stuck at home over the summer, whose families were coming to get the food in need. And so we were able to provide those and been able to do some ongoing relationships with people that collected that. So that was a really successful thing.
Hey, Michael, let me have you pause just a second. We got Congressman Heiss, who spent quite a bit of time in Loganville himself. Congressman Heiss, we're featuring Michael as our good citizen and the great work that his church is doing. And I was just saying, as you were coming into the stream, that our nonprofits and our churches in the state of Georgia, in Gwinnett County, in Walton County, these are critical organizations. And I know you're an ordained minister. I'm an ordained minister. Michael's an ordained minister. And we are really big on having folks get involved with their churches and their nonprofits, right?
Absolutely, Tim. Our whole nation was established on faith and on the faith community being leaders, not only in the community, but beyond. And I think that now more than ever, that's an important, absolutely a critical part of who we are. And so, I just do everything I can to encourage our faith communities to just keep doing what they're doing. And I heard Michael say, listen, I know it's been a tough year. Our church, everybody has suffered this year, but we've got to just keep pressing forward more than ever before. people need the faith community to be very active and engaged. And so thank you, Michael, for all you're doing.
Yeah, Congressman Heiss, I know you're busy. I want to go ahead and ask you a couple of questions here. And this is a very fun, light show as we highlight every week a different city. We're focused on Loganville this week, and you spent a lot of time in Loganville. I've driven through Loganville a lot, right, going Atlanta to Athens. But what are some of the things you really like about Loganville?
Listen, well, I was a pastor there in Loganville at the Summit for several years, and so we were in and out of Loganville all the time. But some of the big things that I think, of course, Washington Farms. Dee Dee always took our girls to Washington Farms there. You have strawberries and all that kind of stuff down there to pick, and that type of stuff is always a lot of fun. Of course, there's always activities on the square at the amphitheater down there. We've been to many of those events, the Autumn Fest and Independence Day. But one of the favorite things that we loved, in fact, for a while there, just about every week, we would go to Foggy Bottom barbecue. We absolutely loved Phil Folsom and the crew there at Foggy Bottoms, and we just loved that type of stuff. But Loganville, I remember when I was a kid, Tim, the commercial, I believe it was for Loganville Ford, if I remember correctly. But the big word was, "Where's Loganville?" And everybody grew up when there was actually an advertisement that encouraging people to come buy a Ford at a Loganville Ford, and they ended with, "Where's Loganville?" And nobody asks that anymore. I mean, Loganville is a thriving city. It's the largest city in Walton County. They've got a great leadership from the mayor and all the city and community leaders, and just an awesome place to be.
Yeah, Reverend, you moved from Virginia down here, and if folks can see the Chinese writing on the back of your office there, I'm going to pull it up a little bit larger. You and your wife went to China for a couple of weeks, and Jody, this is such a cool story. Michael went to China. They adopted a 7-year-old. Tell us about that experience, Michael.
Yeah, so we adopted our daughter from China in 2017. She's blind, and we had a desire to adopt, and so we went to China, and that's where we were able to get partnered with her, get matched with her. And so we were there for 2 weeks. We did all sorts of paperwork things and got to know her. Language barrier was fun. But this behind me is actually from her. So it's as a priest myself, it's the priestly blessing from the Bible. The Lord bless you and keep you. But it's written in her native language, which she is now almost completely forgotten, unfortunately. But she's been with us for about 3 years now.
Michael, as you and your family and everyone, your church included, has interacted with your daughter, and I guess when you have a person that's visually impaired, to this extent, it changes everybody's world around them, right? It's made everybody more sensitive to this. I know we work a lot with the Lions Club at the Public Service Commission because the junk fees on the bottom of the state phone bill, we're responsible to shepherd that money to to agencies that work with both the visually and hearing impaired. How has it changed your life?
Well, it's changed lots of things, and getting to know this sweet girl from a different culture and a different place, but also with that specific need. It's been fun. When we were adopting her, I started learning some Mandarin to try to communicate with her, which she's mostly doesn't want to use anymore, which is fine. So I don't get to practice, which is fine. We've also been learning Braille in our home. But speaking of the Lions Club, they actually provided us with something we use in our services here. We read from the book of Psalms in the Bible every week as a part of our service. And they provided her a Braille copy. The local Lions Club provided her with a Braille copy of the book of Psalms in the exact version that we use here, so that she could follow along and participate in that way. So we thank you to the other local organizations that partner with us, as we are also partnering with them.
Yeah, Congressman Heiss, I know that your church has been involved with a lot of different ministries, me as well. I mean, you hear a story like this and we think about just how precious children are, and so many children that, that need to be adopted or need to be fostered, and we're going to be talking, later on in this half hour with Lauren about foster care and parenting classes for parents who want to regain their children, so to speak. But I mean, you and I are in politics, and yeah, all that's important, but I think it pales in comparison to family, raising children, and just making life better for these young people.
Yeah, there's no question, Tim. The heart of any society is a healthy family. And when that begins to disintegrate, everything else goes with it. And Michael, I tell you, just hearing that story just absolutely thrills my heart how precious that is in every way. And even the outreach of the Lions Club to provide the Braille Book of Psalms. I mean, that's just amazing. And that's the way communities work. That's the way they're supposed to work. And there's a lot of great ministries in the Loganville area, from the pregnancy centers to you've got the ministry village that just has a host of outreach opportunities to different people and needs within the community. The foster care, just across the board, the ability and the commitment really to reach out and help individuals and to help families maintain strength and health is absolutely critical. And Loganville is really a leader in that regard in this particular region.
Well, Congressman Heiss, we're going to say bye to you. Thank you for serving the district. Thank you for your ministry, your family, and all that you're doing. And I hope you have a fantastic day today.
We'll do it. We're on the way to the airport, but thank you for letting me break in here for a few moments. I'm just grateful to be a part of this, Tim, and thanks for all you do, and for each of you on here. Thanks.
All right. All right. Thanks a lot, Congressman. God bless you.
Yep.
Hey, Faith, why don't you introduce Lauren and the great work that she's doing?
Absolutely. So Congressman Heiss actually just mentioned the ministry village in Loganville, and back 8 years ago or so, I actually worked in the ministry village. A Child's Voice CAC, Child Advocacy Center, was located in that ministry village at the time. It has since moved to Social Circle. The office has, but they still serve both Newton and Walton counties. And we're going to have Lauren on. She still works for a Child's Voice. I used to be a forensic interviewer with a Child's Voice, and she's going to explain what a Child Advocacy Center is, and what a forensic interview is, and the ways that they serve the children of Newton and Walton counties.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I didn't get to overlap with Faith, but I feel like when you enter into the Child Advocacy Center world, a part of you always stays there. A Child Advocacy Center, a lot of people don't know what that is, but it's a national model. There's over 900 CACs in the nation and over 50 in Georgia. So the premise behind a Child Advocacy Center is that when a child experiences abuse or witnesses a crime or is a victim of a crime, that they need a safe place to go to talk about what happened and to receive services. So our center is a safe and child-focused environment where a child who is a suspected victim of abuse, either they've told somebody that they were a victim or there's a strong suspicion that they were a victim of abuse, or if they've witnessed some type of violence or a violent crime, they come to our center for services. Faith mentioned the forensic interview. That's normally the first step at our center. Specially trained people talk to the child victim to get the statement from them in a really safe and child-friendly way. That's also audio and video recorded, so it can be used as evidence as part of the criminal investigation. That helps make sure that the child only has to tell that story once. Telling that story over and over can be really traumatic. And so we do it the one time as part of a multidisciplinary team approach with all the partners at the table. So law enforcement, DFACS Child Protection, our forensic nurse, so that we can do a forensic medical exam to make sure bodies are healthy, to gather any evidence if there is any. And then we do a lot of family support to help families heal. Like Congressman Heiss said, that families after an incident like this, because abuse is so often perpetrated by someone known and trusted to the child and to the family, we want to help make sure that they can heal from that and overcome that. So it's kind of a one-stop shop, and we do that there and then follow the cases and the kids to make sure they have what they need to heal moving forward.
Thanks, Lauren. So one of the things that Commissioner Echols is very focused on is working with awareness and prevention for human trafficking in the state of Georgia. He's a member of the statewide human trafficking task force. He started the Unholy Tour about 6 years ago now, Commissioner, and it's a form of awareness. If there were a human trafficking case in your jurisdiction, with a minor victim, what role would the Child Advocacy Center play in that case?
Sure. So in Georgia, there's a statewide trafficking hotline, as well as kind of, a lot of initiatives on trafficking. So the way it would work typically is that a child is identified, and then there's a network of providers. The Child Advocacy Centers work closely under the human trafficking hotline. So a report gets made either to law enforcement or to the hotline. They identify where the child is located or where the child is placed, where they live. And then they coordinate with our center to make sure that that victim receives the services they need. So it looks a lot like other types of abuse, but we also understand that there's unique circumstances to trafficking cases. So we'd make sure that we'd get the forensic interview scheduled by our specially trained interviewers in interviewing human trafficking victims or sex trafficking victims. We'd do that medical, and then a lot of follow-up in coordination with the regional coordinators through their statewide coordinators and then regional coordinators for sex trafficking. Our family advocates partner with those regional coordinators to provide services and support in the child's community, and just lots of support, lots of education, and continuing coordination and support so that these complicated cases and the victims are able to get all of the supports that they need to heal and move on from that trafficking.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. Thanks for the work that you do with the Child Advocacy Center. It's so important.
Lauren,
Thanks for having me today.
Lauren, I want to thank you as well, because as we see this nexus between foster care, or the lack of foster care, and human trafficking, it is stunning, and we, I just don't know how we solve this problem. Parents need to take responsibility and be great parents, and sometimes it doesn't happen, and their children pay sometimes the ultimate price. And I just thank you for this difficult work that you're doing. Hey, we're going to bring into our stream today Rick Husack. And Rick, you and I met back in 2013 out at your moonshine still, as I sometimes call it, as you guys were brewing up biodiesel for Whole Foods. And tell us a little bit about that process and why we need to be making sure that chicken grease and French fry oil is not being dumped out in a landfill and it's being burned in trucks across Atlanta. And we got you muted, Rick, if you can unmute yourself. Sorry about that. There we go.
Is that better?
Yes, it's much better.
Okay, so we've kind of migrated our business quite a bit since you last came there. As you were saying, we started producing biodiesel, which is an alternative fuel made from renewable resources such as restaurant oil, poultry fats, virgin bean oils. And as you were indicating, that fuel you can run in any diesel vehicle without any kind of retrofit. In fact, most of the truck stops now have about a 20% blend of biodiesel in their diesel fuel. But what we found out very quickly is that we weren't scaled to the level we needed to be able to be competitive in the landscape. And so we started taking our company and focusing more on the oil collection from restaurants. And now we have a presence in pretty much the Southeast. We're based in Walton County, but we have a wastewater treatment plant, because inevitably when you're dealing with restaurant oils, you've got wastewater. We bought the wastewater treatment plant up in Ackworth, Georgia. And then recently we acquired a company in Virginia where we collect restaurant oil, and also down in Alabama. So that oil collection has grown quite a bit. We now have about 40 employees, about 15 semi trucks, and then we have these vacuum trucks that are the trucks that go behind the restaurants and suck the oil. And a lot of the expansion happened with our recent award of all the forts and bases in the Southeast. So we're dealing with forts all the way down to Florida, such as Eglin Air Force Base, all the way up to North Carolina, Fort Bragg, and getting all that oil and bringing it in. And as I was saying earlier, we weren't really scaled to be to deal with the real demands out there. And so a lot of our clients now are companies such as Valero and Neste that produce something a little different than biodiesel. It's called renewable diesel. And essentially it is the same thing as diesel fuel. The only difference is instead of using crude oil, they're using renewable oils such as used cooking oil and virgin bean oils. And because they're using that oil, it's actually a carbon negative. And a lot of that fuel goes out in California right now where they have a carbon credit. But what we're seeing is a lot of these refineries now are boosting that production out quite a bit.
You know, I think folks probably are surprised to hear that you can actually do that. But I remember walking through Oconee County when I was, campaigning in 2010, and I saw a guy pouring this weird stuff into an old Mercedes, and he had figured out how to do this. He would actually back then go and get this oil, and he had this formula with a little gasoline, a little traditional diesel, and all of this filtered chicken grease. And he ran both his old Mercedes and an F-250 diesel on this thing. He's quite proud of it, and it literally did smell different out of the tailpipe, he said.
Well, the interesting thing about the history of diesel is Rudolph Diesel invented the diesel engine really as for the farmer. So if you think about the farmer, they used to have a plot of food for their mule or their horses. And Rudolph Diesel, when he invented the diesel engine, that engine was really meant to burn like a peanut oil. And so replacing the mule, you still had your feed lot, your feed plot, and then you would crush that, and then you could burn it in the diesel engine. So there's a lot of history behind the diesel engine. It's a very, very efficient engine.
Well, we've been focusing on Loganville today and Walton County, and want to thank everybody for being on our show today. Just moments from now, I've got our committees at the Public Service Commission, so I'll switch gears and we'll do more of the state's business. But Reverend Guernsey, thank you for all you're doing at your church and your family. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Rick, man, keep it up. You are helping us be more sustainable. That's all it is to it. The fact that we can use a waste stream and we can turn it into something very productive. So thanks for all you're doing out there.
Appreciate it.
Faith, where are we going next week?
Oh, next week we are traveling to Conyers. So actually not all that far from Loganville, just one county over. And then after that, we'll be going to Tybee Island. And then starting in March, we'll visit Peachtree City and then Waynesboro. So we're going to be kind of all over the state in the next couple of weeks.
Well, tune in every week at 9:00 on Thursday, and we would love to focus on your city. Let us know what needs to be next. So, hey guys, have a great Thursday, and thanks for being on our show today.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, y'all.